Hello, ANCAP Radio, and welcome back. We are live. This is your host, Adam Carswell, the voice of Liberty, joined by my favorite co-host in the world, also New Zealand's most wanted, Dave Henderson, and we've got a great show lined up for you here today. If you're just tuning in or listening on the replay, remember to hit the like button, the retweet button. Go ahead and share this space with your audience. The more people we can get anarcho-capitalism in front of, the better. And you know that, so go ahead and spread the good word. Go ahead and follow Dave, myself, and ANCAP Radio now as well if you haven't done that before. I'll start and say, for those who listen every week, you can hear my voice is getting better, but I still have a slight cough. So bear with me as we make our way through today's episode. Really, the focus today is our prestigious award, the Guy Fawkes Award, which Dave Henderson and I came up with, and we're going to talk about that in detail today. We're going to announce our first ever winner of the Guy Fawkes Award on today's show. But before we go any further, I just want to kick it over to Dave. Say, how are you? Where are you tuned in from? And what are you looking forward over the next 60 minutes today?
Good morning for me, Adam. And you're paying the price for having moved from Florida to Canada, aren't you? So
100%.
That's the problem. But anyway, I understand that shakes off after 2 or 3 months and you get your voice back. So there's something for you to look forward to. But good morning for me. Good afternoon for you. Of course, it's great to be here as always, and to be talking with you and our guests and listeners. I'm looking forward to talking about the Guy Fawkes Award because Guy Fawkes is quite the character, or was quite the character, and he deserves wonderful acknowledgement, particularly in the context of his efforts and his sad demise. But more importantly, Adam, what does deserve a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of focus, a lot of validation is people anywhere and everywhere who do put up some resistance to the state, who don't just roll over when the state is out of control and misbehaving and acting way beyond its authorities and powers that it might already have anyway. And it's a lonely journey for a lot of people. It's a tough journey, and they deserve all the support they can get. And I hope that in the fullness of time that ANCAP Radio can be a great support for those people, and that in addition to our shows and acknowledging them, we can provide resources for people who want to or need to take on the state, who are fundamentally nothing more than at their most benign, the state is a bully, and of course at its worst, it's just an overt oppressor.
Right, and one thing I've been very impressed with from getting to know you, Dave, is that this is, I guess you could also argue, I said you're New Zealand's most wanted, but you're kind of New Zealand's Guy Fawkes as well, from a lot of stories that you've been through, and I'm sure you had some good moments there with Doug Casey, who was the one who connected us as well as far as challenging the authorities in New Zealand. So on that note, throughout the course of your life, what would you say were kind of like the one or two moments where you took the state on head on and came out victorious?
Oh, well, unfortunately, Adam, I've had several. The most high-profile one, of course, was a huge scrap I had with the New Zealand's tax department. It's the Inland Revenue Department, so the IRD, equivalent of the US's IRS, the UK's IRD. And
I think some people might refer to that group as Zionists as well. I don't know. You can tell me.
Yeah, indeed. And so I had a huge dust up with them where they claimed I owed them all sorts of money, up ridiculous 7-figure sum, which I didn't owe. They were just bullying me. They wanted to smack me up and wipe me out. And so we went to war. I rolled up my sleeves and decided that I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to go the distance. It took 4 years to get the matter resolved. They owed me money. They had to pay me a check. They had to give me a check. Actually, it was the first time in their entire history they'd ever written a cash check, because I wouldn't take it. I was going to cash it. I wasn't going to bank it. And then, but the better part of that story is I got back on my feet and I bought their head office building, and I renamed it Henderson House. And every one of those miserable pricks that had smacked me up had to go to work for the next several years at Henderson House. And then at the end of that, when they went to renew their lease, I didn't renew it. I refused to renew it. I kicked them out. And then I turned the building, as I had plenty of opportunity to describe, to some productive use. And I converted it to a very cool hotel, which it still is today. That was a delightful moment. But and I thought, funnily enough, and this is rather sad from a reflection on me, is I thought at the end of that, excuse me, Adam, I thought at the end of that no bureaucrat anywhere could be bothered having a scrap with me ever again, and I'd be left alone. But in fact, it was the opposite. And since that time, so many bureaucrats, both at a central government and local government level, have rolled up their sleeves and wanted to come after me. So that was a big lesson. I was very fortunate in that fight that I had a dear friend who was a member of Parliament, and he of course encouraged me immensely, and gave me all sorts of support. And as a consequence of his position as a member of Parliament, he was able to bring a lot of pressure to bear, and in the end, he caused an inquiry, a parliamentary inquiry into the Inland Revenue to be held, at which time a whole bunch of people came forward, which he was also able to champion and support. And for a while, he was able to affect change in that government department. But what happened afterwards, after that, Adam, was interesting. Is that for a long time I used to get a lot of people contact me to come to see me, who were getting beaten up either by the tax department or, in cases, other government departments, and they would. My secretary would come and tell me so-and-so was here to see me, and I'd agreed to see them. And, you'd sit there, and often it was a couple, husband and wife sitting there, and they would tell their story. And, I would look at them and say, well, I've only got two pieces of advice. I'll help you, but you need to subscribe to this. And that is, number one, you commit to go the distance with these people. And number two, you find a way to enjoy the process. And more often than not, these people would look at me as if I was on drugs. And the sad thing is, they were looking for, as people often do, for a silver bullet, just a one-shot answer that they could use, some magical piece of legislation or judicial trick or whatever that would fix this. But such a device doesn't exist. And that's the sad thing. And so as we speak today, people are getting beaten up by the state in every jurisdiction where the state exists, because that's what happens. But and there is no magical bullet that will fix their problem. But if you find yourself in those circumstances, you've really got two choices. You roll over and you just effectively, take your beatings and give up, or you take the beating and you give some back, and I think that's the only way to approach these things, is to give some back. But it is important to enjoy the process, which sounds counterintuitive or oxymoronic or whatever you want to say, but it doesn't matter what circumstances you find yourself in life. They are your circumstances. And my attitude has always been, you need to accept them, embrace them, and find some way to have some joy and satisfaction in them, and just keep wading through it. So that's the importance, I think, of, well, certainly the motivations for you and I and Doug for the Guy Fawkes Award. And as I said, I hope that this station, as it flourishes and finds its feet and grows, that it can become a decent support for people in such circumstances, and also provide them with some resources for taking on the state.
100%. And by the way, to our team, if you guys could update the space title to have it say Guy Fawkes Award winner announcement, we definitely want to make sure everyone knows that's what we're going to be announcing today in about 20 minutes. The award winner, I'm pretty sure, unless we get surprised here, he could pop on, will not be able to attend today, but we are going to bring the person who nominated the winner on to say a few things about halfway through the show. So get ready for that. Not announcing the winner yet, but we are announcing our first, and we are going to be accepting nominations for the February Guy Fawkes Award winner after today's episode as well. So stay tuned. The winner of the award, as Dave mentioned, well, first of all, to qualify, you have to be someone who's challenged the state and arose victorious, or maybe in the middle of a battle with the state, and we can still highlight. And the winner receives $1,000 US dollars worth of Bitcoin. I guess to clarify, it's kind of broken up. So the winner actually gets about $800 worth, and the nominator gets $200. But Dave, for those who are unfamiliar with Guy Fawkes, I know we touched on him briefly, but could you also share just with our audience a little bit about who he is, and also the significance with the movie V for Vendetta?
Yeah, well, V for Vendetta, if anyone listening hasn't watched that, that's an absolute must to watch, which is a great story about state resistance in a lone man's fight to vindicate himself, and and to get revenge, I guess, essentially. And Guy Fawkes, of course, was a young man in his mid-30s who in 1605 was the leader of the gunpowder plot, which almost successfully blew up Parliament in the UK in 1605. Now, I think it's important, Adam, that we draw the distinction that we're not advocating for people to blow up Parliament, much as it sounds like a delightful outcome. But
well, in some regards, Washington D.C. I think still has to kind of approve everything that comes out of Hollywood, or someone by the state approves these. So they did put that in there too. Just have to remember that.
Yeah, very much. So it's important to draw. What we're looking for is for reasoned, logical, peaceful pushback on the state, to embarrass the state, and to highlight to others just what a bully and what a mischief maker and what a thug the state fundamentally is. So that's what we're advocating. Now, Guy Fawkes and his colleagues, of course, were a little bit more enthusiastic and aggressive in their aspirations, and they were going to blow up Parliament. And so over a period of time, they managed to rent, believe it or not, this space in the basement of Parliament buildings. And then over a period of time, they smuggled in all this gunpowder. And they had it all loaded up, and they were waiting for the sitting of Parliament. And I can't tell you exactly, but King James, of course, was going to be there. And unfortunately, someone then tipped off the authorities, and they all got arrested and had terrible end to their activities, with dear old Guy Fawkes being hung, drawn, and quartered. Their prime motivation is that they were Catholics, who of course were fundamentally opposed to a Protestant government, and so that was what their fundamental motivations were. And of course, the great line that you would have heard many times, and is a tad hackney, but it is delightful, is that Guy Fawkes was the only man who ever entered Parliament with honest intentions, and of course he was. But that's the thumbnail sketch of his story. And of course, there's been heaps of others throughout history who have engaged in similar activities, but I don't think there's any future at this point in time in the Western world in trying to engage in a violent uprising. And it's simply the fact that the state has all the muscle, the state has all the guns, and it doesn't matter at this point how many people you might muster, you're not going to achieve that. So from my personal point of view, my main objective is to embarrass the state as much as possible, show them up for what they are, which are thugs, bullies, incompetents, and so forth, and push back in all those regards, challenge them and take them on at every opportunity, because they do screw up, they do make mistakes. But beyond that, there is a decent core of them. I don't know. I'm going to say, in my experience, 30-40% of them who are actually outright malevolent and who enjoy the power and authority they have and abuse it. And those people need to be challenged and embarrassed as well.
Yeah, I think peaceful pushback is a great phrase you use there, and that would be the best way to describe it, and who we're looking to give this award to. Because you're right, if somebody were to go, and I don't, whatever, blow up the White House, right? Like, we're not awarding that. If anything, that's going to get everything shut down. So the embarrassment, however, though, that's the stuff that also goes viral, and that's the stuff that really, in this day and age, makes a bigger impact. Because even if it's your local state building, there's thousands of them around the world. So maybe replicating exactly what Guy Fawkes did, you're right, that's not what we're going for here. But people who are going to kind of put the state on display for being the thugs that they are, we've got an award winner who's done just that.
Yeah, and indeed, I mean, the COVID madness from 2020 on drew a lot of great people out of the woodwork who did indeed take on the state and champion the values that you and I hold dear. And I mean, I think that's another point is you also want to be very clear about what your purposes and intentions are here, and the fact that often people will have a big pushback against the state because it might affect them directly, we'll say financially, for example, and that's fine, and they should do that. But at the end of the day, the people who are the real heroes are the people who are doing it to protect or advance or champion a meaningful, proper value, the values of personal responsibility and personal liberty. And those are the real champions and the real heroes who are doing it for that reason. And they do everyone a huge favor by doing that. And so it's also a case of, I have no doubt that when people see someone else pushing back and someone else making a stand against the state, it empowers them and gives them cause to want to do the same in their own circumstances. And it was very much that case with COVID, the COVID madness. And in New Zealand, which completely disgraced itself politically, if not, beyond politically, socially as well, in the way it behaved towards the COVID madness. And it was fantastic to see. There was a group of three women in Auckland, New Zealand. They were, I don't want to demean them in any way, but they were just fundamentally going about their jobs as mothers and wives, looking after their families. They got so incensed by this, they formed an organization called Voices for Freedom, which is still very active today. And I understand, I mean, you're talking a population of 5 million people in New Zealand. They ended up with a solid base of 100,000 people out of nothing. They built an organization. They employed people. They got every aspect of that organization going. And today they have their own radio station, believe it or not, Reality Check Radio, which also is sensational, and that's just sensational. That's fantastic, and the people it inspired and caused to become active, which again were just ordinary New Zealanders up and down the country who then hit the streets. They attended protest marches. They went and put leaflets in letterboxes and did all these wonderful things that they might otherwise not have done. So, it's a good example, Adam, that there's no cloud without a silver lining. And it's what I was saying before. If you find yourself in these situations, find a way to enjoy it. Find a way to make something of it.
Right. And just looking back at that kind of that era, that year 2020, 2021, and what came from it. I mean, not only their project, but if you connect the dots, ANCAP Radio was kind of born through that, just through the networks that we're in. And there's been so many awesome, we'll just say, anarcho-capitalist related topics and projects and businesses that have come to light because of the state getting too thirsty for control. And a lot of those people are going to be the ones that we start giving this award to moving forward. So
Yeah.
couldn't agree more, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were many fabulous observations by Jefferson, but one of the delightful ones, or a couple of the delightful ones, were that the fundamental nature of things is that the state grows and that the citizenry shrink, and that is just the fundamental nature. If you look back through history, and I mean, America itself is just a classic example of that from the American Revolution. I mean, when Jefferson became president in 1800, one of his first roles was rolling back a whole bunch of, through executive orders, a whole bunch of legislation that had arisen, some disgusting stuff. And I mean, as he observed, you basically need a revolution every 20 years, which can sound a bit extreme, but it's absolutely needed, isn't it? Because the state grows, people shrink, and every now and then we have a pushback and we see legislation being rolled back, and we see some good things happening, but then away it goes again. The pushback is never far enough, and it just keeps going. But then we have the odd bright light like Javier Milei in Argentina, who I'm sure a number of our listeners and yourself would have seen his speech to the WEF in Davos this week, which was just sensational,
Yeah, and you said a revolution every 20 years as well. That my mind just started going as soon as you said that, because if you look at the time clock here, we had COVID. Then 20 years before that, we had 9/11. Then 20 years before that, maybe I can't think of anything in like late 70s, early 80s. But I guess we had the issues with Russia.
No.
But then we also had the Vietnam War. And then you keep going every
No,
20 years. Yeah, go ahead.
We had Reaganomics in the early 80s, if you'll recall, and Margaret Thatcher in the UK rolling back stuff, Reagan rolling back stuff. And funnily enough, in little old New Zealand here, we had a revolution, economic revolution in the 80s, where we went for what is often described as Fortress New Zealand to a very free market society. We had in the late 80s, of course, we had the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the rollback of the breakup of the Soviet Union. So, I mean, I metaphysically, which is always, metaphysics are always a very important discussion, and one's politics should come from one's morality, and one's morality should come from one's metaphysics. And I'm of the belief that you can bullshit, and you can create a false reality that's out of step with morality or out of step with metaphysics, but you can never sustain it. The fundamental of this, the fundamental nature of this world or universe that we live in is that you can't go on forever trying to rule over people, have authority over people. It just doesn't survive. It doesn't last. It creates misery and poverty. And the fundamental nature of man is as a free and responsible individual. That's man's fundamental nature. And to the degree people try and avoid that reality or suppress it, they might succeed for a period of time, but they never succeed in the long term. And history is reflective of that, indeed, Adam. But
It is. It is. And it's always good to, the history that we can look back on and can give our best thumbs up that it's legitimate, because, the victors do like to write the history books
oh
sometimes.
yeah,
But, or even just from at least going off of our own lifetimes, it's really interesting to see how many patterns you can find to
yeah,
just give you the hope you're looking for.
yeah.
If
No,
you,
and
yeah, go ahead.
well, you can study any economic jurisdiction anywhere around the world, and the times that man made the most progress, the most advancement, were the times when he or she, I should say, experienced the most freedom. And was able to capitalize on that, utilize that freedom to advance fundamentally society in a very significant way. And, I mean, it's one of the things, and I'm getting off track here, Adam, and we need to talk more about it. One of the things that causes me great concern is, as I look around the world, it's hard to find people under the age of certainly 25, probably under the age of 30, but under the age of 25, who actually understand how wealth is created. And these people have grown up over the last 20 odd years in societies that have been, relatively speaking, ridiculously wealthy compared to any other point in history. And there's just this assumption that wealth is there, money is there. If the state needs it, it can get it, it can print it, it can borrow it, and we can create the affluence in society that we want through that process of printing money or borrowing it, not through the creation of wealth by unleashing people to be free individuals advancing their own agendas to the benefit of everyone in society.
Totally. And even if you look back over the last 2 or 3 centuries, you'll see the shift from just your average everyday person being their own version of an entrepreneur to a day and age where everyone expects to have jobs and expects to work for someone else. And the whole job system is just completely designed to suck as many unnecessary tax dollars out of individuals as much as it can.
Yeah,
So I'm down for an entrepreneurial revolution, as well as I'm sure you are. And
you bet. Yeah,
just
well,
go ahead.
it all stems, funnily enough. It doesn't all stem, but a key factor in here, Adam, which is also a key factor with government and with bureaucrats in government, which is what we're talking about here in the Guy Fawkes Award. People pushing back. They're often pushing back against state employees, bureaucrats. Is a dominant emotion is envy. And envy is a disgusting emotion. It's something that if you ever see it in yourself, that you should put a lot of discipline, effort, and work in to eradicate, because it's an appalling place to sit, is being envious. One can be inspired, but being envious is terrible. And that, more than anything else, in my view, is what motivates a lot of bureaucrats. They will sit there and they're envious when they see people being affluent, see people making money, see people enjoying their life, succeeding in a myriad of areas, and they then start working to pull those people down. And these people generally are poor pricks who have never properly resolved their own emotions and never taken responsibility for their emotions, and they live in this dull, grey, miserable existence. And out of that springs envy, which then starts to motivate them. And I get convinced that a lot of these political initiatives that gain currency, like we'll call it climate change, which is a big deal right now, I mean, that's driven out of envy. It's driven fundamentally by a socialist agenda, socialist ideas and initiatives, where they want to see people who are affluent and enjoying their affluence. They want to see them dragged back to the misery that the average socialist lives in. So in fact, a good
Totally.
definition of socialism is the common sharing of misery.
I'll agree with you on that, and just very well said. I'm looking forward to going back and listening to the replay today, because I haven't heard you share that bit before, but every piece of it, it just makes sense. Now we're about halfway through today's episode, so I want to remind everyone a few things. One, if you're just tuning in now or listening on the replay, be sure to like and retweet this session. This is ANCAP Radio. We go live every Thursday here at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're with Dave Henderson, co-host and co-founder of ANCAP Radio, and today we're announcing the Guy Fawkes Award winner right now. I do want to say, if you are wanting to call in or ask a question, we're going to open up the phone lines here soon. But the first person we want to open up the phone to is our buddy Reinhardt, who's the one who nominated the winner of the first ever Guy Fawkes Award. So we'd like to give a huge congratulations and a huge round of applause to Aaron Siri. That's Aaron Siri, who is an attorney based out of New York City, and he has gone to battle against the state several times from what we've seen in our research, and come out victorious, especially on the topic of COVID vaccines. He helped a few students, the University of San Diego, take down the state and University of San Diego when they were trying to enforce mandates there. And then most recently in October, he helped 8 individuals in a court in Louisiana, who the ones enforcing the vaccine mandates violated the 5th and 7th Amendments. So he's doing a phenomenal job. We got in touch with his team at ican.org, and just thank you to his team, and thank you, Aaron, if you are ever able to get over here and on ANCAP Radio. We'd love to have you, but I'm going to call his nominator right now, who is, I'd say, a true ANCAP. He doesn't have any social media. We love that, which is another reason why we're building out our platform on our website, ancapradio.com. But Reinhardt's just going to share a few words here with us, and I've got him on the line. So Reinhardt, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm good. And you?
Yeah, we're doing great as well. I know you're calling from New Zealand. We've got you here on ANCAP Radio Live, so we just want to say congratulations to you as well for nominating the winner of the first ever Guy Fawkes Award, Aaron Siri. You also now, the entire award is $1,000 worth of Bitcoin given to the winner, and then also 20% of that to the nominator, which is you. So congratulations, you got $200 of Bitcoin coming your way here soon from ANCAP Radio. But if you could just tell us,
thank you.
yeah, where I know you're a private guy, so not exactly if you don't want to, but vaguely where in New Zealand you're tuned in from, and then if you could just tell us how you first discovered Aaron Siri as well.
Well, I'm at South Island near Christchurch, maybe in a van, and so my location changes. Thanks.
And one moment here, Reinhardt. I'll help you out a moment here. So, ladies and gentlemen, Reinhardt, he does have a slight stutter, and so we're gonna work with him here today just to make sure. But you said you're in New Zealand, and where was it?
Christchurch area.
Christchurch.
On South Island.
Awesome. And how did you first discover Aaron, Reinhardt?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't quite get it.
Yeah. How did you first discover the winner, Aaron Siri? Where did you first see him and the work that he was doing?
On Dell Weeklies, so the high wire every week. The high wire gives summary of the important news. And what I like about the high wire is they do thorough research before giving out the news.
Okay. And so just to clarify for everyone there, Reinhardt had seen somebody sharing a post of just the information that I referred to. So actually, to our team, if you guys, I know you found some great articles and interviews that Aaron's done as well. If you could drop those below so our audience can get an opportunity to learn more about Aaron Siri. But Reinhardt, again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come here on the show. Congratulations again on nominating Aaron and also the prize coming your way. And yeah, just thank you so much for being a listener of ANCAP Radio, and we appreciate your time.
Awesome, thank you.
Adam, while you've got Reinhardt, you still got Reinhardt on the phone?
I do not, but I can probably call him back.
No, that's cool. No, I was just going to make the observation that coincidentally today I'm in Christchurch as well. So you flicked me Reinhardt's phone number. I didn't know he was in New Zealand or let alone Christchurch. So I'll take him and buy him a cup of coffee and give him a pat on the back. So
okay, that's great. Let me follow up on that as we're live here. So anyways, team, also if you could tweet that award, I know we have the image for the award. If you could tweet that here in the space as well, let everybody know. And now, the floor is open for callers. So if anyone has any questions or wants to say anything, feel free to tap the request button at the bottom of the screen. But two, shifting gears, Dave, we got to get ready for a February winner of the award. So what are maybe some things that you want ANCAP Radio listeners to know about nominating someone for the February Guy Fawkes Award?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, we had a lot of nominations that came in for this January one, and a lot of them were from high-profile figures that you and I know as well-known names and who are doing a fantastic job. But that's not really the focus of this award. The focus of this award is just a mum or pop somewhere, whether they've got a small business or whether they're in college or whatever it is that they're doing, where they are being smacked up by the state and that they have rolled up their sleeves and are engaged in substantial, relative to the issue, substantial pushback of the state and giving the state a run for their money and hopefully achieving some victories along the line. I mean, Aaron Siri is a good example. He's an attorney in New York. He got highly motivated by the COVID nonsense. He realized the impropriety of so much at a state and national level in the US that was going on, and away way he went out championing a number of people and a number of issues, mandates in particular, and was highly successful. And it's the old story: without those people, without someone making a stand, we just accelerate the decline into some status dystopia, which it needs to be resisted. And I believe all people have resistance in them, and often it involves getting some clarity, getting an understanding that having a problem with the state doesn't mean you're a bad person. More often than not, quite the opposite. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, and it's well worth taking the effort to push back, because as we know through history, people don't push back, and then when there's men knocking on your door in uniforms to take you away, then it's all too late at that point, and we should have started earlier.
Right. So, well, where else can we go from here? I know one thing that we always like to zone in on here on the show when we can is the philosophy. And it's really interesting how focusing on the anarcho-capitalist philosophy and what that is and how we perceive it, that's really what's going to push this this project, this company, ANCAP Radio, and everyone involved beyond years of our existence, right? You just look back at the impact that philosophy's had on the modern world. So where do we pick up? I know we've talked about it a lot here on the show, but where do we go from here?
Well, it's the fundamental purpose of this radio station is to disseminate that philosophy, that political philosophy. But anyone who subscribes to any degree to libertarian or anarcho-capitalist philosophy, if they want to live in a free world and they cherish those values, then there comes with it, in my view, a moral obligation to promote those values at every opportunity. Now, we go back to the COVID nonsense. We'll say the last, goodness me, it's coming up to 4 years of the COVID madness, which is relevant in the context of today's Guy Fawkes Award. A lot of people decided that they didn't agree with mandates. The state was overstepping the mark. It was all horrible. And that's fantastic. And we champion those. But a lot of those people, as you would have observed and as our listeners would have observed, they were championing it more for emotional reasons. They were getting fired up more for emotional reasons than they were for, we'll say, intellectual reasons. And so that event was a good opportunity, in my view, to try and get hold of people who were fired up and were motivated, to get them to see that this freedom philosophy has broader application than just mandates around where you can work and where you can't, mandates about going into a coffee shop or a bar or restaurant or on a plane or whatever. All that stuff's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a bigger intellectual and moral issue here, and that is what are the limits of personal responsibility? What is, if any, the legitimate role of the state? And I mean, it used to sadden me a bit that I have an apartment in the centre of a town in New Zealand, and which I spent some time in. I'd be here and I could hear a protest march going through the centre of our city. And so I would always go downstairs and from the apartment building, and I would stand on the sidelines and cheer people on. They were protesting about COVID mandates fundamentally, and it was great. But I also had to acknowledge to myself that a lot of those people would be back there protesting in a few weeks' time if the government was cutting welfare checks, for example. So that's the point they've got to get, is that It's the same principle. It's the absolute same principle that says government has no right to invoke mandates, that says government has no right to collect taxes and has no right to be handing out your or my money to people because they're having a hard time.
Yeah, that's one thing Doug has spoken about at length too, because there's the concept of anarchy, and especially the concept of anarchy, how we'll just say Hollywood has painted it, which is just maybe the
Oh, yeah.
traditional Guy Fawkes way, right?
Yeah,
Just blow everything up,
yeah, 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 yeah,
vandalism. And so one, I
yeah.
mean, fundamentally, that's quite far from the real definition of anarchy. And I think if you look for even further into it, anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism, voluntarism, there's a reason why there was that that really famous flag, I think, in the early days of the United States with the rattlesnake, don't tread on me,
Yeah,
which
the
really
Gadsden Standard.
exactly. But then really getting our minds wrapped around what wealth creation really looks like and what it is.
Well,
Is
it's more
super
than that,
important.
Adam, too. It's also getting your heads around what personal responsibility means. I mean, personal liberty and personal responsibility are two sides of the same coin. They're inseparable concepts. In other words, you can't have freedom, you can't have liberty without an equivalent amount of personal responsibility. Or looking another way, you can only have personal liberty in your life to the extent you're willing to take responsibility for your own life. And that's a topic well worth personal inquiry. I mean, this is an individual pursuit. It is an individual philosophic pursuit. It starts at the individual and the individual reconciling, what their role is in life, what the nature of the world they live in, and to what extent they are responsible for all of their choices. Now, if you think some other foreign entity is responsible for your choices, well, you're doomed. You are truly doomed to a life of
Or if
misery.
if a foreign entity is responsible for your income too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you think someone else has an obligation to put food on your table and clothes on your back, I mean, you just see these mad propositions that, there's the most socialist party in New Zealand. I remember one of their members of parliament in recent times saying that everyone has the right to a job, to a home, and to something to look forward to. And I mean, what an insane proposition.
I want to
And
know what that was. Something to look forward to. What does that qualify as?
what the fuck does that mean? And how on earth do you deliver that? Because, of course, what people forget, he sits up there and says that, but every so-called right that people assert or claim they have brings with it an obligation on someone else or some other group. It's impossible to have a right without an commensurate obligation. And so what he's saying is that the government has an obligation to give people something to look forward to. Well, what an insanity that is, and what a recipe for a miserable existence. If you're relying on the state to give you hope and aspiration, then we truly are screwed. But it's worse. I mean, if you're relying on the state for any part of your existence, well, that's a horrible way to exist as well. No, this is what I mean. I started life politically confused. I can remember as a teenager being politically confused, and then I was very fortunate in that someone introduced me to libertarian philosophy and free thinking. And I became a hardcore and very dedicated libertarian. But, I think as you get older, and you're fortunate to have come to it at a young age, Adam, but as you get older, you realize there is nothing simply nothing the state can do that is actually useful or helpful, and that anarcho-capitalism is the only moral political philosophy, and that even if we were tomorrow to be able to create magically somehow a libertarian society, it would not take long for it to degrade and for it to grow and start asserting itself in other areas, as the founding fathers discovered after that wonderful American Revolution. And it did not take long at all. I mean, even the constitutional conventions and the establishment of the Constitution was a screw up, But anyway, it is what it is. But it starts at an individual level, and no matter what screwed up a political jurisdiction you live in, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's America, New Zealand, the UK, wherever, you can still carve out for yourself a sane life by embracing this philosophy, understanding its moral significance, and it helps you put in context what the state is and what it's doing, and it helps you clarify your values and know what you're willing to die for, quite literally, and what you're willing to defend and what you're willing to go and to bat for and fight for, which again ties back to our Guy Fawkes Award.
Right, and you just reminded me someone we definitely need to shed some light on, and maybe we'll just say give an honorary Guy Fawkes Award to here on the show is Gonzalo Lira, someone
Yeah, there you go.
who we actually got to know a bit there before his life took a turn. And
Yeah.
if anyone here is not familiar with Gonzalo, he recently passed away in Ukrainian prison. And talk about someone who, I know from talking to Gonzalo too, I don't know if he ever actually called himself an ANCAP, but someone who really stood firm in what he believed in and went
Yeah.
straight to the next life, if you will, on that
Yeah.
note.
Yeah, no, that's an appalling story, because for anyone who isn't familiar with it, he was an American citizen. He ended up in the Ukraine. He spoke out about the Ukraine war, and there is much to speak out about, certainly from a ANCAP libertarian perspective, about the Ukraine war. He spoke out about it. You and I, Adam, had the pleasure of interacting with him and hearing his dissertations about that war and what he was covering. Those were hilarious, weren't they? Because he would be giving us an account, and you could hear air raid sirens going off in the background.
That is true. You really could. Yep.
Of the city he was living in, and then he got arrested and ended up in jail. The thumbnail sketch is that he recently died a week ago, didn't he, Adam? He died in jail in the Ukraine. I can imagine he was being tortured and worked over in there. And I can't begin to imagine what a Ukraine jail would look like. I'm sure it's something out of that movie Midnight Express, if you remember it. They would be just disgusting, horrible institutions. And so he died. And you actually made a good point, because it doesn't matter what one's broader metaphysical views, and in other words, what one conceives of an afterlife, but whatever nature the afterlife is, you don't take much with you. You certainly don't take your big house on the hill or your new Bentley with you. But what you would take with you is your values. And they are something that you hold, that you have resolved, and that's what makes it so critically important in life to actually take the time to be unequivocally clear about one's values and why you hold them, and particularly the moral significance of those values. Because who knows what guiding force they might be on you in the future.
So true. And so, yeah, again, just a rest in peace and honorary mention to Gonzalo Lira. And if anyone here it looks like I saw people in the audience making some dropping some emojis and stuff there too. So it seems like you guys definitely know who he is. But do some homework, do some research, and I know there's a lot of information and videos of him out there just shortly before his arrest too. And it's just fascinating to see what you can learn from someone like that who truly stood their ground in the face of fear and didn't
Yeah.
back down. And Dave,
No,
I
not at
know
all.
you're still here with us, which is great too. But I know you've definitely had to stand your ground many times too, as you've shared earlier here too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's unfortunately becomes a way of life. I'm fortunate that I have a partner who's been enormously supportive in that regard, because one of the things that I notice when people come to talk to me about their problems is there is a pattern here. And I see these people, and it's soul destroying, because the state knows this. The state knows that when they attack someone, and one of the first things that they achieve is they destroy that person's health through stress and worry and a whole bunch of issues. Their health declines. And then I can tell you, inevitably, their relationship, their marriage, their romantic relationship, or whatever else, that declines, and families become estranged, and they get concerned because the person, the individual, if it is, who is getting smacked up by the state, and who isn't probably handling it emotionally as they should, they become a little bit obsessed. And family and so forth can't tolerate that, can't understand that, don't want to see that. And so people become estranged in all of these respects, and their life starts to deteriorate. Their business goes down the toilet, their employment, their job, and these people inevitably end up on their own with declining health and bankrupt. And the state at that point has succeeded, regardless of any merit in the state's initiatives. And it's heartbreaking. It's so terrible to see that. So, it's important why you must put into proper perspective what you're doing, what your values are, and to what extent you're willing to go to support those. And I mean, it's a true blessing if you've got either a partner or a wife or a husband or whatever around you that is supportive, well, then that's a huge bonus.
One of the biggest bonuses you could ask for. You're absolutely right, Dave. I know. From day one, I let my wife know that I'm crazy. She said, "What do you mean by that?" Well, we met during COVID, so I laid it all on the line for her there, and happy to say that we both have navigated, our early marriage here the last 4 years pretty well. So, but definitely blessed to have her, because I've seen other partners out there that they're in a relationship with someone who I could never wrap my head around this one. But when sometimes you see a family where the husband votes blue and the wife votes red, or vice
Can
versa.
you begin to understand that crap? Or worse. I hear people say, regularly, I hear people say, "Oh, we don't talk politics in our household, politics or religion." Fuck me, they're the only two things worth talking about, And these, "Oh no, we don't. We keep our ideas to ourselves." What a disgusting existence that is, So,
Could not, yeah. It's got to have a little bit of misery to it, right? I can
oh,
only imagine.
I mean, well, I suppose you can talk about the weather, can't you, Adam? And and the good thing is the weather changes during the day, so you get a bit of variance in your domestic communications. So, no, that's appalling. If anyone's listening and they're in that situation, I just strongly urge you to pack a small backpack and walk out the door right now, because there is a better life to be had. So, yeah.
Yeah, weather and sports, which I know sports is always an interesting topic too. Just
Oh, there you go.
we had our Zoom meeting with our friends the other day. There was a topic of do sports promote collectivism, or where is the line drawn there? And some really really great points on that topic too. I guess I'm a little bit more inclined to support being a sports fan because I am an athlete as well. But I love the take that that you shared with me one time when you were in Toronto, and the whole city's fired up for the Blue Jays, and you kind of ask people, so how many of these guys are actually from Toronto or actually from
Yeah.
Canada? So
Yeah,
it's
isn't that hilarious? There wasn't a single one. I mean, it's so funny. It's sort of this mock, patriotism, isn't it? It's madness. It's hilarious, but. I mean, sports can be just delightful entertainment, can't they? But the notion, you see it in the UK, don't you? These riots and dust-ups and the people fighting literally to the death.
if only it could be somewhat directed at the state, right? Instead, it's
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's something meaningful. God forbid we would be swamped with nominees for the Guy Fawkes Award, wouldn't we, Adam?
we would. So I think that's a great way to bring today's show down for a landing. Is just a reminder that we are, nominations are now open for the February Guy Fawkes Award winner. And so the best way to submit your nominations is to send an email to us. That's ancapradio@gmail.com for all nominations. Just make sure when you nominate the individual that you give us a little background, maybe a couple of links or some context on as to why you're nominating them. And we really want to make an effort to nominate the unsung hero, the people that we don't see. We're really happy that we had Aaron Siri here, who his name and his brand is out there. But if you have a neighbor or someone who knows someone, we really want to get someone at the ground level this award, because that's what's going to ultimately move the project forward the right way. So again, open to future big names, but if you got a neighbor who's fighting the state and coming out victorious, get his name or her name in the hat. Send your nominations to ancapradio@gmail.com. And yes, that is the only way that we will be reviewing nominations. So make sure you do it the right way. Send an email to ancapradio@gmail.com with your nominations. And remember, whoever wins gets a $1,000 reward in Bitcoin. And the way that's broken down really is 800 to the winner and 200 to the nominator. So go ahead and make yourself some money along the way, which I would say Bitcoin is kind of that's more money than the dollars and the fiat currency you're seeing anywhere right now, which is just being printed like crazy. So, Dave, any closing thoughts or remarks?
No, you summed it up beautifully, Adam. Thank you. And anyone who's rolling up their sleeves and working to give the state a bloodied nose is someone who we care for and want to support and champion in any way we can.
That's right. So again, thank you all for tuning into ANCAP Radio here. We're going to be live again next Thursday with an absolute legend, repeat guest, Dominic Frisby. If you do not know Dominic Frisby, I'm sure we'll tweet about him here in a moment, but go ahead and look him up, especially on YouTube. He's so funny. We had a great time with him last time. He's coming on back next week, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Aaron Siri. Congratulations to you again. Rest in peace, Gonzalo Lira. Thank you for all you did for people just standing up and not being afraid to stand firm in what they believe in. And Dave, it's always a pleasure. This has been a great one. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you.